Hello and welcome everybody. I am Artorigold and I am back again with Cladtu for another episode of the Bleach Virgin podcast. This time, of course, the very exciting conclusion to the Soul Society arc, season 3, episodes 42 through 63, and we finally get to see so much action, and this is really where, in my opinion, Bleach just shines. This is the beginning of Bleach. All the stuff that we saw before this is so wildly different to what we have going on in Bleach in this arc and what's to come. One, of course, thing for people who haven't seen the show before, I have seen all of Bleach. Cladtu is the virgin here, so we are
Hi.
going to pick your brain, so to speak. So first up, where did we leave off? We left off with Ichigo versus Biakiya at the where they were like kind of fighting. I think Yorichi shows up, and she kind of just as like Ichigo, you're not strong enough. You can't do this right now. I believe was it the conclusion of the Renji versus Byakuya? No, that wasn't it yet. It wasn't Renji versus Byakuya. This was just um, Renji breaks out of his cell. That's right. And he wants to try to fight against Ichigo again. And we actually get to see his Zanpakuto Zabimaru and what it looks like. We get to see the manifestation of
hmm
another Zanpakuto, which I think is pretty cool. I like the concept of that. Like everybody has like a an inner version, an inner world, kind of like how we've seen Ichigo's inner world, and they each have a Zanpakuto, and they look pretty unique. We see Ichigo's, which is Zangetsu, which looks like an old man with like some shades. But then we get to see Zabimaru. What did you think of how he looked? Because
It
I know you
was
like
very
monkeys.
interesting because it was drastically different.
Yeah, it's very different from Ichigo's. But we see a lot of animals. I think one of the other examples I'd like to bring up is one of the captains actually, which I believe we get to reveal that Buckethead later, of course, in
hmm
the arc is actually like a fox or a dog. So there's a lot of cool little animal stuff in there. I'm not sure if there's deeper meaning to that. There might be in like Japanese mythology. I know, of course, like with One Piece, we see some of that recently with like Yamato. Um, but before we get too far ahead of ourselves, so we see them on the bridge, and Yorichi basically shows up to try and stop Ichigo from fighting Byakuya because, Ichigo's just going to get his ass whooped. We also get this, basically learn about Bankai, and we learn what Bankai is. How do you feel about this reveal? Because I think when we were watching it, you said you've definitely heard the word Bankai before, but you didn't know what it was.
Yeah, after some odd years of hearing about Bleach, it's kind of hard to avoid the word Bankai, but
Yeah,
I
yeah,
never actually saw anything relating to it. I just remember hearing the words Bankai just thrown around, like that was a very common word thrown around.
yeah. Especially just in like the anime scene, everybody probably mentions it. I mean, Bleach is super popular, super famous, and I would.
hmm
What would you equivalent like? Would it be something like hearing Rasengan from Naruto, or maybe it's like hearing Gomu Gomu no from One Piece? I wonder what the equivalent of that term would be with other series. It's just really popular. Something about it just rolls off the tongue really cool. It has a nice like sound to it, and so whenever you hear anybody say Bankai, it's just like, oh, oh shit, oh snap,
hmm
this is happening. This is the power up moment. Um, and I think this is where, because we've talked before in the other episodes, where if I know a lot of people compare Bleach to Dragon Ball Z, even though I think we both can agree it's not a fair comparison, but I could see in layman's terms, it's a very easy way to simplify it because Bankai, I think a lot of people would consider that to be kind of like a Super Saiyan transformation for
Yeah.
most people.
I was about to say Bankai is kind of like a more subtle, kind of calmed down version of ah.
Yeah, they even have like the spiritual pressure vibes going on, which
Yeah.
reminds me a lot, especially with the Kenpachi versus Ichigo fight. That's like a
Oh
big one.
yeah.
Um, but basically, we learn a Bankai, and we also learn a little bit about Yoririchi. She's like the Flash Master, and she like evades Byakuya at every turn. So we know she's really speedy. She's a fast character. I really like Yoririchi, and I liked her reveal. Um, one interesting thing about her, and I don't know if you noticed it, of course, because we do get into her fight later. You notice she doesn't have a Zanpakuto. You notice that?
I didn't notice that, but I didn't know if she had one and she just didn't want to use it or what the
Mm.
deal was. But I did notice she just kind of just didn't
She
fight with
doesn't
one,
have it.
at
Yeah, she
least.
doesn't. She fights all these captains, and I suppose we get a bit of her backstory, and she was essentially like a captain, right? She was the leader
Hmm.
of the stealth force, but yet she never really had a Zanpakuto. We never saw anything of that nature, which I found pretty interesting. But we can go get into Yoriichi a little bit later. So we learn about Yoriichi telling Ichigo about Bankais, and then immediately after that whole thing, we get a wonderful little fight with Mayuri and Nemu, who end up squaring up against Uryu and Orihime. Mayuri, of course, the 12th Division captain. One evil bad dude looks really weird. And the very first introduction to him, we see him, I guess he turned people into bombs or like attached bombs to people and had them go like up to Uryu and Orihime to just be like, "Hey, what's going on?" and get up real close to him, and then just blows them up, immediately killing like 5 or 6 people. Um,
And that one guy that survived was like, "Captain, this wasn't part of the plan." He's like, "Hey, you're not supposed to live." Boom,
yeah, and
blows
just
that
kills
guy
him.
up too.
Just kills him. A great way to just start off Mayuri as, this guy's not a great guy. Um,
Yeah.
which is weird. I think it's kind of fun just to see like Kenpachi, who looks like he would be an evil bad dude, but at the end of the fight, he actually end in this arc we see a bit of him. He seems really good compared to Mayuri. Like he seems
Hmm.
like just an
He's like a chaotic kind of good guy.
yeah,
He
chaotic
just
good.
wants to
Yeah.
fight.
Very good way to put it. I like that. But yeah, so we see the Mayuri. He. What do we know about him? We know.
Well, we know he's was it the science division captain? Forget
Yeah.
exactly what the division was called for him, but he's the science captain.
Yeah, it was called something
They
like
did a
that.
little explaining about Nemu and the and about I guess they used Nemu to kind of segue into he's the creator of like the current Gigai and Mod Souls and stuff.
Yeah, he. I think the exact thing was like research and development captain or something like that.
Yes, I think that was it.
I think it's easy to say he's just the science guy. He's the tech guy.
Mm,
He definitely gives like Orochimaru vibes. I think. Because
especially
Orochimaru's
with the pale skin.
Yeah, he's got the pale skin. He's very evil, and I think they both do a bunch of weird science stuff to people, just figuring out all kinds of new powers and things like that. And then, of course, we see his Shikai, which is like this crazy golden, kind of like a trident almost. It's like a trident, but without the spear part. It's
The
just
golden baby trident.
yeah, it had a little baby on it. And we learned just in general, it's a pretty evil power. You get paralyzed, you can't move, but yet you feel all the pain still. And he just
Hmm.
slowly just stabs him. It's a pretty brutal scene. I mean, Mayuri is just written as evil as Joker evil as you can get. And then, of course, we get a nice little backstory to see a reason for Uryu to even really turn up in this fight is because he did all kinds of crazy, terrible, bad experiments on the Quincy's to explore exactly how their powers worked, all kinds of information on them. And then, of course, we learn the big reveal that it was his grandpa that Uryu has shown to really love and stuff, that he basically was the one who killed him. This is part was kind of funny to me because this made no sense now that I was thinking about it. But of course, in the moment, you kind of forget about it and it doesn't really mean it. Like it doesn't mean anything in the moment, right? But when you really analyze it, why did he have a photograph of his grandpa? it just
Well, I was thinking it's like he thought this was the last Quincy, and he just really gets off to that. It's like I got to operate on the last Quincy. Yeah,
maybe,
it is
yeah.
just a true testament to how evil he is.
And
Not only that, but another testament to how evil he is he just when he paralyzed Uryu, he slashed through Nemu's body as well to do that.
Oh, right. That is a lot of stuff. We didn't really go much into Nemu. Nemu, I think, also is revealed she has the last name as Mayuri, and it's basically like created by him, and he just feels like he can do whatever. It's like I created you. I can do whatever I want with you, and you got to follow everything that I tell you to do. Very bizarre and twisted kind of relationship, and Nemu just kind of goes along with it. She probably sees him as a father figure, but just kind of in a really warped kind of way. And I feel really bad for Nemu. I really do.
You know what?
She gets the
I
shit kicked out
wonder
of her.
if they're trying to draw parallels there with Uryu and his father.
Maybe there is a pretty. We don't see
It's
much of the
kind of
relationship
a
yet.
hard parallel, but I mean, like they're both kind of in a sense follow trying to not quite follow in their footsteps, but they're still like trying to listen to them because yeah, you did basically make me.
The father, we see his father a little bit, I think, in this episode, or maybe it's later, but we definitely see that his father is like these Quincy powers and everything are pointless, and money is only it has no value. I might as well just
Mhm.
work a job. Like he basically just wanted to give it all up. It seemed. Um, and
I think at
Uryu
this
just was
point
very
we didn't
shocked.
know his dad was a Quincy.
Oh, you're right. Maybe we didn't know that. Did we? I think we can guess that he is though from this
Yeah,
moment
we
because
we
he's
could
talking
probably
about
make
it.
the assumptions. Yeah.
Because the father is saying basically, don't be a Quincy. His grandpa's a Quincy, or his dad is a Quincy. So I think you can make the assumption he has Quincy powers and he just gave it all up at this point. I mean, that's definitely what I got out of it. Um, but yeah, so for this fight, we there's a few different things. There's so many different powers that are going on. But I think the first thing that happens after Uryu is paralyzed. Also, oh, we didn't mention, but Orihime just totally bails. She did nothing in this fight, which
Well, I mean,
is
let's be real. Like she tried to stop the explosion and
hmm
ended up suffering some damage in turn because she just doesn't control her powers that well. So she was kind of just not really in the fight to begin with.
I don't think she did anything this entire Soul Society arc, actually. Did she do anything? I don't think she fought
She
anybody.
did create the barrier against the explosion, but
Yeah.
that was really it.
She created the explosion. The living bomb explosion was the one that she protected it against. Yeah, Orihime's powers are definitely like not used very much. I would say in general,
Hmm.
because we essentially cleared the or finished the Soul Society arc as a whole. Um, Chad also was it was mildly disappointing how Chad and Orihime didn't do as much. I was pretty disappointed that they didn't do more this arc. And
Yeah, but we'll get to Chad later. But I mean, like he lost to somebody that was way more important, whereas
mm-hmm.
Orihime is just kind of sending out her little fairies just to get fucked by some nobodies.
Yeah,
You
that's a
know,
good way to
really
look at
only
it.
being useful for that barrier one time and then just healing.
And that's really kind of the role that she kind of just ends up taking. She's a healer. She's a support type. I don't really like that. I don't know. Healers in anime are kind of a
Yeah, it's like
weird
why
thing.
even give her an attacking fairy? You
Yeah,
know, if she's
yeah.
just gonna heal the entire time.
It's definitely it's definitely a real whole other can of worms to get into Orihime, which I'm gonna try to avoid about for now. But she didn't do anything this arc really. She put up like one useful
Fortunately,
shield,
yeah,
and then she was worried about Ichigo a little bit, and then she healed. She healed, but that was about it.
hmm
She didn't do much. I would still
which was
say
important. The healing's important for sure.
I would I would even say because I know there was a lot of editor interference against Kubo, a ton of it. But that could be a whole podcast on itself. For example, the editors wanted the Soul Society arc to come extremely quickly and they rushed it because they didn't like season 1. And one of the things that I learned recently is Tatsuki, the karate girl, was planned to have powers as well, and recently there was a thing called the Black Book of Bleach or Bleach Black Book, and it revealed all kinds of concept art. And in it was actually Tatsuki as a Shinigami and her Shikai. She had a power, and she was planned
Ah,
to actually be a Soul Reaper. And the editors told them to skip that and just go straight into this arc, which is a
hmm.
bit unfortunate in my opinion.
Oh,
It's a bit unfortunate.
her soul, her Zanpakuto would have definitely been some like fists, like some
Oh no,
brass
there's a
knuckles
picture of
type
it.
stuff,
There's a
bro. Oh,
picture of it.
they even have it.
They
Oh,
have a picture of it. It's pretty
what would it
crazy.
have been?
It's it's like a knife attached to a really long furry animal, like a fox or something. It's so bizarre. It's so bizarre. I'm gonna have to get a picture of it. Even put it on the podcast as well. It's absolutely insane. But give me 1 second. I'm gonna get it up on the screen for you as well, Clyde. Don't look at the screen for a second.
I'm not looking. I'm
Don't
not
look, because
looking
these
at
are
the wiki.
spoilers. Yeah, I'm on the wiki. Let me get the picture of it. Oh, this picture quality sucks. All right, but here's the picture of it. Do you see it?
It's it's just a fox.
Yeah, I'll put it on the screen right here for everybody to see in the podcast. This is what it looks like. It's a really terrible picture, but essentially she has like a fox and it has a really long like tail and then it's
Oh,
a
is
knife
that
or
a
a blade.
blade?
That is a blade right here. The
Oh, I
quality of this
thought it
picture is
was
not very
her
good.
her outfit.
No, this is what
Okay.
it looks like. Unfortunately, there's it's called All
It's
Color But the Black. Um, and so yeah, it was revealed in here that
it's
Tatsuki was supposed to
interesting.
have Shinigami powers. It's all concept arts kind of stuff. But
Oh, what a wasted character.
oh god, we're not even touching the surface of that yet. Trust me, we haven't even touched that yet. But I will say that there was a lot of editor interference in Bleach, and while
Unfortunate.
we don't know what happened behind the scenes, but we know from all the interviews from Kubo that he disagreed all the time with his editors, and so we can only imagine what the series would be with them or without them. I'm sure the editors had some good input, because I will say this: this arc was amazing the season one, right? Like season one was very much like a setup arc to be like, here's everybody's powers and stuff like that.
Yeah,
But
here are the powers, here are the
yeah,
hollows.
but I definitely could see the editor's point of view because like season one was pretty weak in comparison to like this arc. This arc was like way better in my opinion. But I would have
Hmm.
liked a little bit more build up. I think that's something that like series like One Piece have really perfected is the build up and like they have a very slow start at the beginning of some of these arcs, but it has such a nice build up to it that the payoff is so much better. And I think that's something that the lack of the season one in Bleach has ruined a little bit of the build up. I mean, this arc was amazing, but I think that the editors were rushing Kubo, and so he wasn't able to set things up as properly as he wanted to, and that shows. I think it shows. Because we've even skipped
Oh,
ahead a little bit into the next season after this, and we see Tatsuki, and she's just useless. And we'll get
hmm.
into that on the next episode of the podcast, but you know what I'm
Oh,
talking
if he
about.
would have replaced Ganju and everything.
Oh, if we had a fight with her instead of Ganju, that would have been way better. Um, but I guess they didn't want to do like an episode to Tatsuki getting a power because it seems really pointless, especially like when you see her against Yami and stuff in that one episode that we just watched a little bit of. It's like
Hmm.
she's just there. She's like there's no point for her to be here. Like why is she even here?
Yeah.
It's like she's just fodder. She's just like a I don't. She's not even like a Krillin. She's like a Chi Chi. No, not even that Chi Chi. What
Okay.
is she? I don't even know. Just
Mm.
a useless character, and there is
Yeah.
potential for her. So yeah, that's something that I like just kind of
She's a
revealed
Mr.
though.
Satan.
Mr. Satan, yeah, with the
Kind
karate,
of.
kinda. No, I see it. You know what she could have been? She could have been like Videl.
Oh yeah.
That would have been great. If she was like Videl, I loved Videl. She could have been more like Videl, and that would have been perfect, I think. She didn't have to be super powerful, but I would have liked to see more from Tatsuki. I'm really just that's one of those characters that I'm really disappointed that didn't really do much. Um,
Yeah.
People might get mad at me for saying that, but that's the truth. That's how I feel about her. But anyways, we'll continue with the Uryu fight. Obviously, you can tell out of all of the fights that we have from the what do we call it? The Ichigo squad, the human squad, or whatever. Chad, Orihime, Ichigo, and Uryu. Uryu gets all of the attention and love. You can tell immediately. This fight was just on a
Hmm.
different level compared to all the other ones, and he turned the fuck up. He really did. We see him use a lot of cool techniques. We get to see his new bow from the glove power up, which was really cool. And he also had some cool moments in the last little arc that we had against some of the useless fodder characters. And honestly, I kind of wanted more fights from like Chad and Orihime against those type of characters. I thought that would have been a great thing if they each had like fights against other smaller Soul Reapers like that. Um, so I'm a little bit. I don't know how you feel about that, but I would have liked to see more. I would have liked to see. And of course, we'll get into this later. I would have loved to see Chad fight like a Soul Reaper of that caliber, because when he did fight
Yeah,
one, it was like a joke character. You know what? You remember him talking about?
yeah, they kind of just went like, oh, he just pooped on like all these other nobody Soul Reapers, and then you instantly see him go against one of the strongest captains and just get rolled.
Yeah, it's
It's
just
like there
it's
was
not
no
fair.
in between to like gauge his
Exactly.
power and actually give him a good fight.
Because we get some great. I mean, oh, man, we're gonna get into Chad, right? When do we talk about Chad? Hold on a second. I'm gonna look through my notes here. Do we talk about Chad? Where? What episode was that when Chad was fighting? Was it even in this arc? Was it last arc? I think it was last arc. I don't even think. I think that Chad versus him was last arc, wasn't it?
You know what? It might have been actually.
I think it was. I'm still worked up about it. I gotta talk about it because the Uryu fight was so good. It just makes the whole thing with Chad and Orihime feel disappointing to me. That's like, to me, this arc is like perfect except for that stuff. The only thing bad about this arc, in my opinion, as someone that's watched, all of Bleach, I think Chad should have shown more in this arc, and Orihime should have done something other than just heal. That's just my opinion. Because Uryu steals the show. Ichigo and Uryu are just stealing the show completely of the original four that went through the gate. So with that, I guess let's get back to Uryu and then we can talk about Chad, because I don't want to steal anything away from Uryu here, because he does deserve to be talked about. And I know when talking about anime, sometimes you just get all over the place. That's why I made notes. Anyways, so we see Uryu and he uses the puppet string technique, which is pretty cool. He can't use his body. He only feels pain, but he basically uses all the Ryatsu kind of like puppet strings to kind of forcibly move his limbs,
Which
which was
was
a
really cool.
I like that. That was cool. It reminded me a little bit of um there are a lot of little puppet masters in Naruto, but it reminded me of them, like Sasori, I think, like the redhead guy, the puppet
Hmm.
master, and the old Choyo, so the old granny character.
Oh yeah.
I really like Sasori. I think weirdly enough, I know this is irrelevant, but Sasori was actually like my favorite villain from Naruto, and I wish there was more of him. And I wish that he didn't lose to Sakura, because that's incredibly disappointing for me, because I hate Sakura. But
It definitely
you know,
seems like Uryu strings could be applied to more ways than just his own body too, like a puppet master could, you know?
yeah, and it makes a lot of sense, because like when you looked at the Quincy powers, I mean, they create a bow and the bow has a string on it. So I kind
Hmm.
of get that little bit of connection there, where that is just like some sort of evolved version of that power in a way. Um, but yeah, I love Quincy's. I love it's this is something that you see in Bleach a lot, a very yin and yang sort of relationship between things, and you see that with Quincy versus Soul Reapers, with bow and arrows versus swords. There's a very big yin and yang there. Another
Even
big
the
one,
outfits themselves.
I was just about to mention that you have all black
Hmm.
with the Shinigami. Uryu wears all white. Actually, I believe it's white and blue and black and red too, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Even the energy too.
Yeah, yeah. There's just so many like yin and yang stuff, and I know I want to save it for the next podcast. But as you know, we've watched a few episodes, or as we've watched a few episodes of the next arc as well, because Bleach is just too good right now. We just getting a little bit ahead of ourselves. But in the further arcs, we see Arankar and we see Vizards, right?
Mhm.
And that's a big yin and yang relationship right there. You see Shinigami trying to get hollow powers, and then you see hollows trying to get Shinigami powers. So you see a big kind of thing with that. Ichigo's inner world, same thing. You see Ichigo fighting against a literal like white, black hollow version of himself, like human versus hollow. So there's a lot of cool similarities, and I think that's kind of what the whole theme of Bleach kind of really is. But I don't know. I really like that. So, anyways, back to Uryu. We see the whole backstory getting revealed. Oh my god, you have a photograph of my grandpa and you like dissected him or some shit. Who
Oh
knows what he
yeah.
did.
That was gruesome.
It was weird. and he just keeps that photograph in his in his pocket, just to show people. Mayuri's pretty weird. He's twisted, and we see him break the glove. And it was said that that glove would basically give him tremendous power if he broke it, but then he would lose all of his powers. It's a great turn up. It's a great consequence, and it looks amazing. He gets like the one wing. He just devastates Mayuri, and I think he hits him with one shot right after releasing the power, and then immediately just blows his fucking entire arm off, right? And then
Mhm.
Mayuri, of course, turns
Well,
up, and we
don't
get.
forget he
Oh,
did that to the Bankai.
well, no, that was after, because remember, he uses the power, blows off Mayuri's arm, and then he uses Bankai. He uses Bankai right after that because he's like mad that he took damage and lost an arm. Because we do see his Bankai for the first, and I gotta be honest, what was your impression of this Bankai?
I think it was very fitting.
Yeah, because it's ugly, it's
Yeah, it was
grotesque.
very ugly and gross and made you go, "What the heck is wrong with this guy?"
Yeah, I think a lot of the powers that people have resemble what's going on in their souls, right? Like what type of person they are. Um, a little bit of that with people, and we'll definitely get into that for another character's powers that we see. Well, one of them, of course, Tosin, who is the blind captain, and all of his powers are basically removing your senses to be more
Mhm.
like him. So there's a lot of similarities, I think, with the personalities and how a person is with their powers, which I really like that. I think that's a really cool thing. Kubo is really good at that. I think that's one of the big strengths of Bleach. You get to see a lot of similarities with people and their powers. But yeah, I thought Mayuri's Bankai, when I first saw it, I remember thinking, oh, so Bankais are going to be like summoning the manifestation of
Yeah,
Zanpakuto. And it kind of is, in a way. It definitely seems like it, doesn't it? But we don't know because
yeah,
we don't see the manifestation of
yeah.
everybody's
We need to
thing.
see more manifestations of the Bankai.
But we do see, of course, Ichigo's and uh Renji's later on, and those two we can
Hmm.
say there's some pretty good heavy similarities between the manifestation and the Bankai, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, how would you rate the Uryu fight all around and all the fights that we've seen in Bleach so far? How would you rank this one?
Hmm.
What are actually? Let me just ask you this: what are your favorite fights so far in Bleach? If you were to say like what your top
Well,
three, top two or three are.
my up to this point where we're talking up to what we've seen all the way.
Everything we've seen. Everything that we've
Well,
seen.
I think I have to first and foremost. It's not even a contest. The Zenpachi and Ichigo fight is
Kenpachi.
just
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. Kenpachi. Did I say
Kenpachi's.
Zenpachi?
Yeah, it's like
Oh my
Kenpachi's
god. Yeah,
Zaraki
Kenpachi.
or something like
That
that.
was so.
Yeah, you
Yeah, that
mixed
was
them.
so,
You
so good.
merged
Yeah,
it.
I matched his whole name together.
Which is fair.
That fight was so good.
Yeah, I love that one. That one was just like you don't need no Bankai to get shit done kind of fight, which I do really like it. I like that a lot, and it was bloody. There's one part in that fight scene that always gets me every time is Kenpachi's like rushing Ichigo, and Ichigo's sword like
Oh
lunges
yeah, he just
forward.
slashes his
His nose,
face
yeah, it's like right above his nose, and you just see the cut, and that
and
cut
just
feels
not even
real.
hesitated, and then he just stabs
Oh,
him.
oh, that cut gets me every time. I feel it. It's just so real every time I see it. I
Yeah,
love that.
it's very. I love it. You could tell there was a lot of effort put into the animation of that fight.
Yeah, it's great for an older series. Like I think this that fight was probably animated before Rasengan was even created, to be honest with you. Like it
Yeah, I
was
think
it
you're
was
right.
early on. It's early. Bleach is it's old, but it holds up great. I love the animation quality of it. Right now we're just watching it on Hulu. I wonder if there's HD versions of these episodes because it's like you can tell when we're watching it. It's like this. It's not like widescreen or anything. It's just like the old what do you call it? Just like it's just a square. It doesn't like go into widescreen or HD.
Hmm.
Maybe there's some better versions of Bleach, but we're just watching it off like Hulu and stuff right now. But anyways, so at the end of that fight, we see Uryu just completely just shoot an entire hole through Mayuri, one shots him and the Bankai, completely kills him. Unfortunately, Mayuri does some weird shit where he like stabs himself in the throat, which I thought was cool, by the way. I thought that was really cool. Stabs himself in the throat, but then just turns into like liquid goo and just gets away. Which shows what kind of character he is because he's very slimy.
Yeah.
Um, but Uryu is weakened and he tries to
And
go up to.
poisoned.
Yeah, lots of poison. Lots of poison. That whole thing was poison. That's like his whole power, really. The Bankai, too, also had poison. But we get a whole thing where Tosin, the blind captain, shows up and basically just finishes off Uryu really quickly. We see a little bit of his power where it turns everything kind of like black and he just gets knocked out. That's pretty much the end of Uryu for this arc. Uryu basically caught I forget what seat the other guy was. He was like fifth seat maybe. He caught a weak Shinigami, but beat him pretty easily, and then took out a captain. So easily has way more bodies than Shadon or Orihime. So he definitely is really strong, and he's built up to be really strong. But now we're left with a really big problem this arc, which is that he doesn't have any powers. Uryu
Hmm.
is now pointless, and he didn't even completely kill Mayuri. He just beat him temporarily. So was it worth losing all your powers for that moment? I don't know. Maybe you get maybe some vengeance for your grandpa, but at the same time you don't kill him. So is that really enough vengeance? Because he
Yeah,
just gets
but
away.
he was also poisoned, so it's like, I'm kind of dead either way, so let me get my vengeance before I die, you know?
Yeah, maybe he was just his back was up against the wall and he just had to no matter what. Makes sense. Because he probably wasn't gonna beat him with if he didn't reveal that power up. Most likely, probably wouldn't. He was pretty weak at that moment.
Yeah.
So, anyways, we'll continue on after that. We, of course, see Yorichi, who is now training Ichigo, and we learn that she basically has this device that forcibly manifests Zangetsu, a device that Urahara Kisuke, bucket helmet, or not helmet, bucket hat, I believe they're called, the green and white hat.
Hmm.
And basically, you have to fight your Zanpakuto and force it to teach you the Bankai or something along those lines. So we get a nice little training arc. It's pretty nice. It's pretty fitting. And honestly, looking back at Bleach, I'm pretty surprised that Ichigo learned Bankai so quickly. It definitely felt like it's almost like there was no. If you were to like compare it to like Dragon Ball Z, it's like you skipped Kaioken and just went right for Super Saiyan. Is how I view it.
He was just put in the hyperbolic time chamber.
Yeah, pretty much. He definitely was. He had that 3 day training. And then of course we get probably some of the weakest parts of the arc. I don't know how you feel about it, but we get flashbacks of of Momo, Renji, and Izuru Kira. This is definitely kind of like part of the weaker stuff for me.
Yeah. It's
Um,
definitely weaker, but important for later on stuff
it was
because it does
important.
call back to it.
Yeah, there's a bit of callback. There's a bit of that.
I think
Um,
specifically the hollows and the fact that they were able to sneak up on them is what was important.
Yeah, we do get to see a little bit of hollows, which is good. There's actually some pretty interesting things. Oh no, no, no. That part actually I can't reveal yet. That's for the next podcast. But I did recently look through the manga, and there are quite a few scenes in the manga that aren't actually animated, that
Oh.
have to do with hollows and even do you remember the big giant with the axes?
Yeah.
Apparently there's a scene with all of those giants in the manga as well, and we see them in the manga, but they aren't in the anime. But we can get into that later, maybe next episode, and I'll wrap it up with the other stuff that wasn't included. And it's interesting to me because there's always small little differences between anime and manga, right? Not
Mhm.
everything gets translated, but with this one definitely doesn't make sense why they didn't add it. And we'll get into that next episode for those of you who are interested. Make sure to check in that next episode for that. But anyways, go back to the flashback. It's kind of boring. I believe we also learned that Uehara or Kisuke, I'm not sure which name people usually use, he used to be the captain of where Mayuri is the captain of now, the science squad. So he's a smart guy. He's made a lot of devices, and we still don't know why he's like not able to go to Soul Society. Why is he in the human world? There's still a lot of mystery about that. So if you were to gauge your interest in Uehara as a character, like where are you at with him right now? Because we've seen a lot of him in the first arc, but we haven't seen like much of him at all in this one.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to be very interested because it's not like you can tell he's important and you can tell there's a lot of mystery behind him, but like there's already so much other stuff that's going on. You aren't really
Mm.
thinking too much about it, you know?
Yeah, there's just so much going on. I think when I looking back at this, I completely forgot that they even mentioned all this stuff with Urahara.
Yeah, because so many other things were just happening. It was just kind of like
Hmm.
a passing mention. It's like, oh hey, he was the science guy, and then you just
I
move
would say
on.
that with all the flashbacks as well. The flashbacks felt weak because there is just so much more interesting stuff going on that I cared
Yeah,
about. I mean, you just get done with this Uryu fight, which is amazing, and then all of a sudden you get all this info dump about Bankai, and now you're just like, what is Bankai? I gotta see Bankai. You know, like that's something you're more interested in, and then it's like, well, now we have to learn about Momo going to school. Okay, this is more important right
yeah,
now. So it definitely, and then you also see Izuru Kira, who is a character you don't really see much of, the blonde hair guy. Like we see a lot of Momo and Renji. Renji, I understand a lot of his flashbacks, like that's kind of important. But the other two characters are like, okay, all right, they're here. I guess we'll learn about them. But the timing for that is just terrible. I think. Like I would have preferred for that to be, I don't know, somewhere else. There's just
yeah.
so
That
much
could
more
have been later
stuff.
down the road when we see a little bit more with Renji,
Yeah,
because
I don't
there's
know.
not really that connection with Momo. You know?
It's just so different, right? One moment you have this great fight, another moment you're training and learning about Bankai. Now we're getting a flashback about three characters that aren't even really involved in that at
Hmm.
all. They're not relevant. They're not relevant to. I mean, it's kind of relevant, but it isn't. It's I don't know. It's yeah, the flashback's just kind of weak too. It's not interesting enough to keep me engaged. And the characters, the only one that I really like care about, I guess, at this moment is Renji because we see the most of that character. The other two, we see a little bit, but not. I mean, Momo we see a lot more than Kira. I'll give you that.
Yeah, at this point in time, you aren't really thinking that you need to care that much about Momo or Kira. You know, you're just like oh yeah,
That's
yeah, I
true.
saw that character already.
Yeah, it's true. Because we also get to see a lot of. It's interesting because there's characters also that we don't see at all in this arc that were all over the arc before, which of course is Hanataro and Ganju, right? We don't see
Hmm.
them like at all. They basically were like, all right, I think the editors knew, oh, these characters aren't popular because they're nowhere to be seen. You see Ganju like a little bit, but we know that the editors and everybody doesn't want to see him, so they just wrap his entire face in bandages. They're just like, we don't even want to look at his face, so let's just wrap
Yeah,
his
just go
face up.
sit in the infirmary. Nobody wants you.
He doesn't do anything. Hanataro just disappears. I don't know what. I can't even remember what they did with him. What happened? He's just gone. You don't
He
see him
probably
like
just went
ever.
back to work.
And maybe they put him in a prison cell somewhere. I don't know. He's just gone. We don't see Hanataro. We have no idea. I forget if something happened to him. I forget. Um, but yeah, we basically see that flashback, and then what do we see? Oh, and then that leads into Momo escaping from the prison.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
we do get a pretty cool, decent little scene here, right? We see Hitsugaya Toshiro, and basically Momo has this letter that supposedly is forged from Aizen, which reveals who the murderer was. And so Momo is all worked up, and Momo thinks that it's Hitsugaya because that's what the letter says. But as we see here, Toshiro is like, I have no idea what the hell's going on. This is crazy. Completely backhands Momo, knocks her out, and then we get to see a little bit of a fight where he releases his Shikai against Gin. How'd you feel about his Shikai?
I thought it was pretty sick. I thought it was at first because you were just seeing some ice and you're like, oh, that's kind of cool. And then he whips out the form and it's like, oh, that's very interesting. Like it's got a little bit of depth to it.
And I remember this was said when we watched it. It reminded you of Demon Slayer, didn't it?
Yeah, when he was actually like slinging it around and you could see
Yeah.
like the streams and stuff. It's
How
getting some
much
Demon Slayer
do you
vibes.
do you think Demon Slayer had inspiration from this? I feel like it might have. Bleach was
Maybe a
pretty
little bit.
influenced. I feel like Bleach influenced a lot of series, and they probably, a lot of people don't know that because I feel like a lot of people who've watched Demon Slayer today never watched older anime, because we have a younger generation of anime watchers now, and I feel like a lot
Hmm.
of them grew up on Attack on Titan and Demon Slayer and things like that, and they probably never even watched series like Bleach. And
Hmm.
that's going to be really interesting for me when this new anime comes out for Bleach. Will all these people be watching it knowing all the stuff like this, or are they just going to watch the new anime and not watch any of these episodes?
Hmm.
Like, are they just gonna start like fresh into the very final arc, or what? Like, I'm actually really
Maybe.
interested about that. That's gonna be interesting to see. I am excited for this last arc a lot. I'm really curious to see if people are actually watching this. But there are a lot of other similarities to Demon Slayer as well. Um, but I do think that the one attack that because like I have it in my mind. You remember Toshiro? He whips out the dragon and it makes this like giant circle around him. And I was like, this is
Yeah.
so Demon Slayer. There's no way Demon Slayer didn't get that from Bleach, right? It looks just like it. The only difference is it's not just water, it's ice, right? So it's
Yeah.
changed just a little bit. But I really like it. And I think we also learned that Toshiro is like a prodigy who's really young and stuff like that, right? He's just supposed to be
Hmm.
like this genius, and that's why he's a captain at a young age. Then of course Gin, we already know what Gin does. His sword is basically a super extendo, and he just goes
Yeah.
pew, and he shoots out, which I do like that simplicity in it because it's also really powerful. The simple stuff is also just sometimes the greatest.
I mean, it
Um,
makes sense. He's a snake, He's just a little
True.
devious. You don't. It's misleading. It's like, oh, it's just a little dagger. Oh,
Yeah.
well, it extends,
I
gets you.
love that he always tries to extend it where it's like his back and you can't see, and then it just comes out of his fucking captain's jacket and you don't even see it come. Because I think he does it here, and I was just like, oh, that's so cool. It's so like exactly something something that he would do. Somebody like him with
Hmm.
that personality would totally do. Just very like, I don't give a shit about honor. I'm not like Ikaku. I'm gonna fucking kill you. Like
I
that's
don't
what I'm
need to
trying to
tell you
do.
my name before I kill you.
Exactly. There's a pretty big difference between characters and their fights. I do really like that, and I respect that shit. I love it. But yeah, so we see that fight. Nothing really happens. I think they all just like break up the fight randomly. I think like somebody shows up.
Rengiku.
Yeah, I think it was her. She showed up and just kind of stopped it. And then of course we
Yeah,
get
she was like, "You guys need to stop, and if you don't, you're gonna need to also fight me again." And he
yeah.
was
There's
like,
definitely a backstory
"Later."
there. There's a little hint of it, but I don't think there's a reveal of it. We get
Yeah,
a
yeah. I
little bit of
think
a
we
hint.
just see the like one scene where she's like laying down in a desert, and he's like, "Hey, you need some help," and then, like that was it or something.
Yeah, I was more interested about that flashback than others. And speaking of flashbacks, immediately after this, we get like Rukia's backstory, which I feel like I should care about more, but I don't, and I feel bad that I don't really care about this backstory. How did you feel about Rukia's backstory?
Um, it was. I think it was interesting, like to see her captain and stuff, but I felt like it was given a lot for something that didn't seem like it was actually that impactful.
Yeah, it was one of those
It actually
things.
seemed like it was more for Ganju than Rukia.
It did. We of course get introduced to Kyan Shiba, who's the lieutenant of her squad. Her guy who's always sick, played by Liam O'Brien, Ukitake, I believe. But yeah, Ichigo gets. He does look a lot like Ichigo, and I think there's something there, and maybe that's why Rukia seems to be so attached to Ichigo as well. But this is also Ganju's brother, and as we learned from the backstory, there's a Hallo that basically kills his wife or fiance or something like that, and then ends up taking over in Kyan's body, and then Rukia kills Kyan, and Ganju, I guess, was knew about it or saw it, and he had that misunderstanding that Rukia killed Kyan or something. I don't know. It was pretty sloppy. It was pretty messy. Maybe because this is weird to me. I don't know why, but it's like Ganju looks like nothing like Kyan, so like them being brothers felt weird to me. But I don't know. Maybe they were like distant brothers or something. They didn't feel like they were related when you look at them. I wasn't that interested in the flashback. I do like Rukia, and I think this flashback maybe had potential, Um, but again, I think the same thing with all the other flashbacks. It's just there's so much other stuff going on that has my attention that this one feels more like forced in a way.
Yeah.
It feels more forced. It doesn't feel genuine like, oh, I really want to tell the story. It's like, let's get this out of the way. That's what it
Yeah.
felt like to me. So yeah, it happens. It's important, but it doesn't grab my attention as much as everything else going on. I mean, we have Rukia that needs to be saved. We got to see what happens to Uryu, who just beat this captain's ass. What's happening to the Goo captain who got away? What happened to Chad and Orihime? We want to see the Bankais. We want to see what each goes up to. I mean, there's so much going on. There's the stuff with Aizen and Toshiro Momo going on. We want to see that stuff. And Kai. Um,
I think your mic kind of cut out a little bit there.
oh, did my mic cut out? I apologize. Well, either way, I was saying, there's so much other stuff there that I want to see that's going on right now.
Yeah.
That's basically it.
Yeah,
So,
there's too many other things taking my attention away from the that I
way more,
couldn't really
yeah.
focus on a lot of the
I really
flashbacks
wanted
and
to
backstories.
see all the Bankai stuff and more of that, but after that backstory, we of course get some more fights, which is great. We get to see Kenpachi fighting
Mhm.
two captains. We see Tosen and Saijin, and of course we see that his bucket head reveals that he's like a fox or like a dog. I'm not sure which one it is. It could be maybe a Shiba Inu, maybe. I'm not sure, or it could be a fox.
I was
Maybe that
getting
gets
some
revealed
Fox
later.
vibes.
Fox vibes, yeah. We do get to see both of those captains' Bankais. How did you feel about the Kenpachi fights there with those two captains?
I loved it.
Yeah,
I love like every fight Kenpachi's in.
Kenpachi. I really thought Kenpachi, like when he fought against the Bankai of Tosen, where it's like he can't see, hear, or nothing, right? But he has the sense of touch still. So he purposely like gets hit all the time so he can try to fight back and see where he is. I loved that.
Hmm.
I thought that was a great way of dealing with that fight. And I thought Saijin's Bankai was super cool, but I don't believe we get to see that fight happen, which makes me sad. Um, yeah, no, we don't see it. He reveals his big samurai suit, but we don't see him fight against Kenpachi. We just kind of see that moment reveal.
Hmm.
But I love the Tosen versus Kenpachi fight. I thought that was great. Um, then, of course, we see Renji finish his Bankai training with Ichigo and goes to fight Biakiya. Now, this was a great fight. We get to
Oh yeah,
see two different Bankais here. How do you feel about Renji versus Biakiya fight? How'd you like that one?
I really liked that fight too. That was definitely one of my favorite ones too. Up
Oh
there.
man, I okay. So of course we see some similarities with the manifestation here because we see a monkey with a snake tail, and here we see
Hmm.
Renji's Bankai, which is basically a giant snake.
Well,
And
if you also notice that, like he had like the fur, like
yeah,
covering his shoulders and stuff, so it was like he was the monkey,
yeah,
and the sword was the snake tail.
exactly, which I loved. I do remember that, and I do
Hmm.
love that a lot. One thing that I love about the fights with Byakuya, and of course this happens in Ichigo, is that he doesn't just use his sword and stuff, right? Like he uses Kido, which I love that he's a because we don't see anybody else really use Kido, do we? We don't see any other captains do that. We don't see them using all kinds of techniques and stuff, and that's something that I really like about Byakuya, that it's more than just using a Bankai and overpowering an opponent. He uses his wits. He uses Flash Step, which is a very much like a stealth force thing, I guess. So
Hmm.
he's jack
We
of all
did see
trades almost.
Momo use a little keto,
Yeah,
but
Momo
obviously
does.
she's not a captain.
No, she's not. Yeah, that's true. But when it comes to the captain fights, it definitely feels like the Bankai is one of those things they're just used to always winning with the Bankai.
Hmm.
So it feels like they probably don't train themselves maybe as much as they should because they're just so used to be like, oh, I'm just gonna beat anybody at any time after just using Bankai. Because like my Yuri doesn't use Keto, we don't see Saijin or Tosen. Obviously Kenpachi doesn't. What other captains do we see fight? I think those are the only ones that we see like really fight. Yeah, but yeah, I like that. The Renji fight was great. There was a big reveal, of course, that his Bankai needs like 10 years of practice after learning it because he's
Mhm.
clunky and he's slow.
Yeah, in
And
order to master.
I don't know about you, but it gave me huge Vegeta vibes when he was like learning the Ultra Super Saiyan or whatever. It's like, oh, you're too slow, and Cell just like is so much faster that his power is just a waste. Or that happens with Trunks too. It gave me big vibes with that because obviously
Yeah,
his
yeah.
his shit was powerful, but Byakuya just like flash steps out of the way. Like, okay, that power means nothing. You know, it doesn't mean anything. Strength versus Dex, I can just avoid it all. And then of course,
Well, he did show off a little bit of a strategy when he was like, "Yeah, I just separated all the bones so you couldn't actually slash
that is
him."
true. I do like that. He is like learning how to use his Bankai still. He's still very much like figuring out how to use the techniques. Like he has the powers, now he needs to know how to use it like in all kinds of unique ways. Because I think like at a very first glance, it's like, ooh, big snake, big damage. I just shoot snake
Yeah,
at him. But I think with the separation and all that going on, there's definitely a lot of um, trickery afoot that you could probably do with separating all the pieces and stuff. But maybe we'll get into that with Renji later on in the further arcs. I know that Byakuya also gets his Bankai revealed, which is basically just. I love that reveal. The way he just drops that fucking sword. Oh,
and just gets
love it.
absorbed into the ground.
Love it. And then all those swords appear. I mean, he just completely uses it to execute Renji. I've never seen so much blood just pop out of a man. Just squirting like lemon juice out of a lemon, just squeezing it or something. Just. But yeah, I loved it. I think Byakuya is a great villain. And then of course, we get to see the finale of that fight. Byakuya just basically doesn't. I think there was a line where like, I'll get you on one knee or something, and he does that. He does get Byakuya on one knee, but ultimately just gets his ass whooped, which is crazy because
But
it is
yeah,
a
yeah,
Bankai
that
versus
was
Bankai
sick
fight.
because he like ran out of energy, like literally inches away from just stabbing him through the heart, and he was like, "Well, I admit you caught me off guard there."
Hmm. But yeah, I think this is one of the reasons why the flashbacks are so weak, right? Because especially in these last few episodes, it's just fight after fight after fight. Like, and the
Mhm.
fights are great. All of these fights are amazing, and these flashbacks before it were just like they
Kind of
didn't
slowing it down.
it slowed it down and it didn't really build up anything. It didn't lead to a payoff for me, and I think that's the problem. Like, what was the payoff of learning about that whole thing with Ganju's brother? Did we get a payoff for that? Not really. Like, if we were to compare a backstory, what's a good backstory? I mean, I guess you could talk about like a One Piece backstory, right? And we get a bunch of payoff from those backstories, especially if it's something um, like Nico Robbins or Nami's, and we finally see that payoff lead to like these are villains, these are the bad people, and now we go back to present day. Oh, it's the same villains. Now we kill them, and we have more reason to hate
Yeah.
them. We don't really get that because, you know,
It's like, what's the use of Ganju? Like, what's the actual real use? He could have just not existed, and the story would have been fine, right?
yeah.
So if you take him out of the equation, what was the point of the backstory?
I'm telling you right
Was
now,
there really any?
there wasn't much
You could have
point.
probably just gotten rid of that one altogether. It's like, yeah, maybe you could have let her talk about her. I feel like you could have let her talk about her captain literally in the next season.
I think all that backstory could have you could have taken away Ganju from it, and it would have been exactly the same. There's
Yeah,
no
there
reason
was
to have
just,
Ganju
yeah,
involved in it at
just no
all.
reason
It
for
didn't
that.
it didn't add anything to it. Um, I think Ganju in general, it would have been great if Ganju could have just been replaced and it would have just been like Chad there or something fighting, and then we would have had a Chad fight and against Yumichika, and that would have been maybe a fun fight. That would have been great, and instead of just Ganju running away like Usopp. It's like Ganju was basically Usopp, but Usopp's fights are still more interesting to me because like
Yeah,
I don't know. It's just it didn't.
Ganji just runs.
He runs, and that's all Usopp really does. But in the
Yeah, but
end,
Usopp needs to run. He's a sniper.
yeah, and he looks scrawny and weak. Like if one of those guys got to Usopp, they would beat him up probably, right? But with
Yeah, it
Ganju,
was like they just wanted some comedy or something in it.
it was very comedy, but I feel
Because
like
he just
it was
he like
misplaced.
he literally pepper sprayed himself
Yeah, he did.
That
He
was like
jumped
the
up.
most impactful thing was he pepper sprayed himself.
Yeah, and his final attack was a firework. Like, okay, I'd rather just have had Chad fight like Yumi Chika and just have like a more fight to be with Ikaku, because to me, Chad very much is a character that has Ichigo's back and Ichigo has his back. I mean, that was the entire backstory. Do you remember that was when they were like fighting as humans? That was their backstory where they were like have each other's backs in
Hmm.
gang fights, and that would have been a
Yeah.
great parallel for them because Ikaku and Yumi Chika are kind of like that as well. Those two Soul
Hmm.
Reapers have each other's backs and they fight for each other, but they're also like they're not like ganging up or anything. It's one on one every time, and that would have been a perfect place to put Chad against Yumi Chika, and they would just fight and have each other's backs. It would have fit so well. It would have been so much better, and getting rid of Ganju would have really helped, I think, the overall story, because I don't think many people like Ganju, and it's hard to argue for Ganju. I feel like that's like a character not many people say they like. Um,
Yeah, I don't know. I guess they wanted to have some sort of explanation of why Rukia is not a bad person for killing his brother. I
I
don't know.
guess so. I mean, I
But it's
like,
like they could have just removed that altogether.
yeah, I like Rukia, and I think the backstory is nice. I guess if you want a Rukia backstory about how she became a Soul Reaper, but the Ganju element didn't do anything for me. I definitely think this whole arc could have had no Ganju and instead replace him with Chad, a character that we all know and like since the beginning of season 1, and it would have
Hmm.
been way more fitting. Instead, they had Chad roam around randomly throughout, all alone, and that kind of sucked. Like it felt like he should have been paired up with someone. Uryu had Orihime, and Chad should have been with Ichigo. That should have been the pair up. And then Yorichi was alone, and that made sense because
Yeah.
that's very. I feel like that's pretty fitting for her. But Ganju with Ichigo made no sense, and I think the entire purpose, like you said before, is he was supposed to add like comedic relief, but it just always missed for me. It never landed. Um, and in that sense, if it was comedic relief, Hanataro did it better. I think he was the comedic relief, and it landed a couple of times for me. I liked Hanataro's comedic relief, but other than that, he was pointless. So yeah, that's enough ranting
Well,
about
and the healing.
that
And the
probably.
healing.
And the healing, also doing something that Orihime does. um,
True.
at that point, you might as well just have the characters all together and let Uryu be alone, right? Uryu could have been alone. Well, no, they had some good moments. I like Uryu's moments with Orihime though. I like those. Yeah, the only thing but yeah, I think you get what I'm getting at. Chad, I feel like was underutilized, and you could have removed Ganju and put Chad in his place.
They just needed Tatsuki to make it, bro. That
Tatsuki
would have
instead of
solved a
Ganju.
lot of problems. Yeah.
That would have been really cool too. That would have been really cool. I would have liked that. I'm really more interested to see more of what Kubo could say about Tatsuki. I'll probably look more into detail about that at some point. I've seen, stuff about it. It's the whole thing is called All Color But the Black, and it's just like it's like a bunch of art and some author commentary. I haven't read all of it yet. Um, it came out like a long time ago though, apparently. It came out like 2006, but I haven't even looked through it. It's just I just know about that picture and the backstory about that one. So there's plenty of other new things getting revealed about Bleach, of course, the new anime. So it'd be cool if Kubo comes out and I can see some more information about what other plans he had. Because some of the other arcs, there were supposedly some other things we'll get into in later episodes as well that was changed because of the editors. Um, but yes, for enough about that. We'll continue moving forward. I like ranting about Chad personally, and about Ganju, and I'm sure people that have watched Bleach would probably agree with me. But if not, I'd be pretty surprised. So leave a comment and let me know about that because I'm curious to hear your thoughts about Chad in this arc as well as Ganju.
And if you agree, leave a like. And if you
Yeah,
disagree, also leave a like.
yeah, exactly. And we won't see the dislike because YouTube, Kek W. So we see Rukia about to get executed by the Phoenix Sanpakto called the Sakyoku. I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but you know what I'm talking about. It's
Yeah, yeah,
basically
yeah.
really
The
strong,
Sokyoku.
something like that. right? And it's supposed to be extremely strong, and it's basically the execution method. It completely
Wipe
vaporizes their soul,
souls from existence.
turns them to ashes, which you mentioned while we were watching. It's like that's kind of funny because it's a phoenix turning
Yeah.
people into ashes. Um, there's definitely a whole reincarnation system going on here, but apparently that just stops it. So we get to that fated moment. It's execution day. Rukia is about to be executed. All the captains and lieutenants are pretty much up there watching it. And here you see the big moment. Bam! Ichigo just stops it fucking casually with his cape on, looking cool as shit. He's got some great new clothing. I love the outfit. I love how they have the little cape on it and everything.
Being the
Um,
center of attraction.
God, I love that theme song. It's too good. But he uses the same spinning attack with his bandage, which I love. I love that he learned like a new technique from his hollow like self or whatever. And he's just like spinning the sword around with his bandage. I wish he did that more in the fights. But of course, it's a Shikai, so you don't really have well, we'll get into it, but in Ichigo's Bankai, he doesn't have like anything to spin it. It would have been cool if he had some sort of element like that with his Bankai where he could like spin it like with the bandages or something. But his bandages all go away in Bankai form, which is a bit unfortunate. I thought that would have been a cool element. Oh, you know another thing which is interesting? I wonder if those bandages, because we also see the soul ribbons. Remember the soul ribbons?
Yeah.
I wonder if there was supposed to be some sort of connection there with all those bandages and all the soul ribbons. Maybe not. Maybe they
Hmm.
just look cool. It was just a random thought I had. Because they're very similar. You have all those
It's
bandages,
true.
you're spinning
Yeah.
it around, you have the soul ribbons, but anyways, that's a random thought. So anyways, we see Ichigo stop it, and then we immediately see him trying to save Rukia. And after that, we see all of the lieutenants are ordered to go after Ichigo, and he just fucking whoops their ass, dude. Bam! Bam! That one fat dude, I love that he just gets the shit punched out of him, and his whole Zanpakuto is just like a spiky ball and chain, or whatever you call that. Do you remember what it's
Hmm.
called? I forget what it's called. It's called something. But he just punches it. He doesn't even use the Zanpakuto. He just
Yeah.
punches right through it and breaks the whole fucking thing.
Shatters it.
I love it. How'd you feel about that whole fucking reveal with Ichigo showing up? I mean, I think it's pretty clear. We knew Ichigo was going to do something, right? Like, we knew he was going to show up. He's the main character, right?
I thought it was perfectly Ichigo. He shows up,
Yeah.
stops the fucking Sokyoku Phoenix. Then
I loved
he just picks Ruki up and just fucking tosses her like a fucking
it.
football right down to Renji.
Did you get
And then
Water
he just
7 vibes from that?
decimates the Water 7. Kind of.
Yeah.
Kind
Like,
of.
like when they're like, I want to live, or she just keeps saying, I don't want to live, don't save
I
me.
felt like Water 7 though had a lot more emotion built up, whereas this is
Mm.
like you're like, yeah, let's go.
You know,
Hype. You
that
know?
would have been a perfect time to have the Rukia backstory right before she was executed. I think.
Mm-hmm.
Where
Mm-hmm.
was what episode was her backstory? Because that was like
Oh,
episodes before that.
it was like,
Episode
Was it
49.
49? Yeah.
Episode 49 is her backstory. And then the episode, because I'm looking at it right now, the episode,
54 is where he actually stops it.
you're right. So episode 54 is when the execution happens and he stops it. And episode 49 is the backstory. That backstory should have been right before the execution. It
Yeah.
would have been way more fitting. And then also, what would have been really good is if you have the backstory implement some of the people who were basically executing her that were there. So then you have more
Mm-hmm.
reason to want to see their fights and them getting beaten. That would have been way better, I think. Because I completely forgot about that backstory, but it would make so much more sense. She's about to be executed, that she's thinking about her past, and the backstory would have fit perfectly. And then the pacing would have been. I think that was the thing. It was just the pacing was off. You changed that
Yeah.
episode to there, and it would have been perfect. Damn, that was 2005. Those episodes came out. That's crazy. I was in high school watching those. But yeah, I think that would have been fitting because that would have been some great way to build up the moment even more, in my opinion. Not that it wasn't great. Obviously, this arc in my opinion, is like fucking almost a 10 out of 10. Almost. I can't give it a 10 out of 10 because if I were to say that, then that would mean I think Ganju is perfect and what they did to Chad was perfect, and I disagree with those things. That were definitely the biggest flaws of this arc, in my opinion. Everything else was pretty perfect. The backstories, of course, were weak, and I think they were put in the story in a wrong place. But maybe if I reread the manga again, I'll see maybe they're put in a different way, and it comes off better in the manga. Because I do think that this anime studio, Studio Period, it's the same studio that does Naruto, and they definitely have kind of like a problem. I think they're much better nowadays, and they have a lot of strengths. But when it comes to pacing and filler episodes, they're the worst of the worst when it comes to some of that stuff. And that is very clear also because, it's 2005. They weren't really. The anime industry has changed a lot. It's been almost 20 years since then. So, yeah, anyways, that's a whole other topic, maybe. But of course, not to steal the thunder from Ichigo, we of course get to see before the Ichigo versus Biakiya fight, we get a couple of cool fights. We see Yamamoto, the captain of all the captains, the big old man himself. He fights against Ukitake and Shunsui, who he is revealed to have a Shikai, which is like just massive amounts of fire, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's super powerful. He's probably the most powerful captain. We don't know yet, but it's to be assumed if he's in charge of everything, he probably is. And then, of course, they reveal their Shikais, and they're the only ones to have dual wield sword Zanpakutos, which is pretty interesting. What did you think about that little skirmish?
I thought that was pretty badass, but I didn't really do too much there because
No,
they
they
were
didn't
trying to
really fight.
avoid fighting him.
Exactly. They basically revealed powers, but we don't see them fight. I don't think they do actually fight. They just like
Yeah,
try
they
to
just
talk
kind
him
of
out of it.
sat there, yeah, for the most part.
It was really cool, but definitely it's like, oh, right. These are like really
Which,
powerful characters. We probably don't want to reveal them right now. Let's save them for later. That's probably what
yeah,
happened. That was the
which is interesting because I think I mentioned it before, but he said take out your Shikai when he was like, "I'm ready to execute you because you guys broke the law." Why wouldn't he just be like, "Go ahead and whip out your Bankai"?
Mhm.
Like this is it, Like so
It's a
that
very
was
good
that's
point.
an interesting thing to think about.
I think if I were to look at it, breaking the fourth wall, I think it was very much a thing like we can't reveal these guys yet. That's what it felt like to me. It's like these guys are,
Yeah.
especially if he's supposed to be like the strongest captain and the leader of everybody. It's like, oh, we can't reveal this guy yet.
Yeah, I can definitely see a cop out answer of oh well they just wanted to start with Shikai and then go to Bankai if they needed, but it would make sense that if he was like, I gotta execute you guys, take out your Bankai, you
I
know?
think he should have said that. I think the exact wording was something like, "Are you not going to release your Zanpakuto?" So it was kind of open ended, where I guess it could have meant Bankai as well, but
That is
maybe,
true.
yeah, I
Oh yeah,
definitely should have
you
said
expect to fight me without even releasing your Zanpakuto. He
something
might
like
have
that.
said that and felt he only needed to release his Shikai.
Yeah, yeah, because we didn't get to see exactly what we didn't get to see what
I
the
would
dual
have to
wield
go
swords
back and
did,
actually
right?
see exactly what they said, but that might have
Same.
been it. They might have worded it like that, where he's
Yeah,
strong enough where he only needs a Shikai,
yeah,
but he's telling them basically whip out your Bankai.
and plus it's two versus one too. Like that's
Hmm.
already like a big disadvantage you would think. But yeah, Yamamoto is very much basically just this is a good way to build up hype on a character to be like, oh, this character is
Hmm.
probably really strong, right? So that's a good way to do it. Of course, I usually imagine the old if there's an old man in an anime, he's usually pretty strong. That's usually the
Yeah.
case with most action shows, right? The old man's always revealed to be like a super badass. But then, of course, after that fight or whatever you want to call it, we go to an actual fight, which is Yorichi versus Soifon. What do you want to? What do you think about this one? Very much speedster versus speedster here.
Yeah, that was kind of cool, but I feel like it could have been a lot cooler.
You didn't like it
It
as
felt
much?
like eh,
Were you
it
like, were
was
you like,
it
go back to
felt
the other fights?
underwhelming. Yeah, it felt underwhelming compared to literally everything else that was happening.
Mm. And
It
is that
felt more
because
like
no
it was
Bankai?
like an emotional thing for Yoruichi more than anything.
Yeah, we do get a bit of a backstory, which is very. how do I describe this backstory? I'm not even sure. It's like a it's like a love thing between the two. It's like a lover's quarrel, I guess. I'm not sure how to really describe it.
Felt like it was more like a big and little sister kind of thing.
Something like that, maybe. I'm not entirely sure.
Regardless, there was some sort of intimacy, very close relationship kind of thing going on.
Mm. I will
Regardless
say
of what exactly it was.
there was no Zanpakuto release or anything from Yoruichi. Maybe that's why it wasn't as fun for you. No Bankai release from Soifon either. Is that
Yeah, it
something that
just
maybe
like
you
Sui
missed?
Fong was like, "Oh, I'm the best. I took your spot," and they fought. And then Yoriichi was like, "Yeah, you're kind of just not in my league."
I mean, that's fair. I would imagine
Meanwhile, you
Yoruichi
have
was
the
feeling
old
it.
man just fucking flexing with like 9 million muscles and just flames flying around him.
That's true.
So you're not gonna release your Zanpakuto?
Yeah, it kind of it was a good fight. It was definitely not my favorite, but I could definitely see like you want to see head captain do some shit with that fire Zanpakuto. Like, yeah, it's like hard to go from that to that. And especially with Ichigo too, because we see Ichigo versus Byakuya, and that hasn't even begun yet. But we do after to see this Yorji versus Soy. I guess we should mention there's like a whole thing with Shunko, which is like this weird like keto merging with himself kind of power to enhance them to make like faster or stronger. I did like that ability. I thought that was a pretty cool reveal when she was like, "Oh yeah, I came up with this technique. I haven't even found up a name for it yet." And Yorji's like, "Oh no, I made a name for that. Yeah, it's called Shunko. I made that." I did like that. I thought that was kind of cool. But after that, we get into the Ichigo versus Biakiya fight, and man, there is a lot of crap that happens here.
Oh
What?
yeah.
Give me your overall thoughts here. What are your thoughts on this fight? The
Hmm.
reveals, the twists.
I thought it was really cool because of there was quite a few things that ended up happening there. Like
Yeah, we get the
you
Shikai
have
reveal.
yeah, you have the 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 reveals of the Zanpakuto. You have the reveal of Ichigo basically being on the same level as Byakuya.
Hmm.
And then you got like the whole hollow mass thing like there's a lot kind of going
Yeah.
on.
We see first off, I guess we see Ichigo's regular Shikai. It has a power. It's called Getsuga
Hmm.
Tensho, and basically it just shoots out a giant thing of energy to blast someone with. It's pretty cool. I feel like it was cool, but it feels like just like one of the backstories where it's like a little bit glossed over because there's so much else going on. Because it's like, oh yeah, Shikai
Yeah.
power, that's cool. Oh, but all by the way, also I have Bankai, so like, who gives a shit about the Shikai right now? You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like,
I feel like Getsuga Tensho should have been shown sooner, at
hmm
least in like a smaller form.
yeah. I mean, he does use Getsugo Tensho inside his Bankai form, but we just don't have a moment to even like really process what's happening with the Shikai. Like it happens, and
Yeah.
you see it only like a second or two. Like he uses a couple of times, but you don't have enough time to process that. Oh, this is Ichigo's power. It's just we go straight to level 2, right? It's kind of like
Hmm.
a big thing with I made this comparison to. There's a couple of things about that with Bleach where it just goes up. There's not that KO Ken. There's it just instead of going to level 1.5 it goes to level 2. Like I feel like it misses that little bit of build up, and his Shikai power definitely feels like it could have been in that Kenpachi fight, or maybe it could have been somewhere else, right? It could have had a little bit of build up, and I would have liked to see that. I would have liked him to learn his Shikai power a little bit before the Bankai, because then you would have gotten
Yeah.
a little bit more from it, because we basically gloss over it almost immediately, because right after he reveals the Shikai power, he basically forces Byakuya to go. He doesn't force him. He's like, "Show your Bankai. Show your Bankai." And Byakuya's like, "All right, fine, whatever. Let's whoop your ass real quick with it." And he does it, and then Ichigo, basically taunting him, goes into his Bankai. Let's talk a little bit about this Bankai. What were you expecting from Ichigo's Bankai? Were you expecting another big
Huh.
creature, or
I honestly I wasn't really sure what I was expecting.
yeah? It's very different from the other Bankais we see, which usually are
Yeah,
very large.
very simplistic, honestly.
And it also, and I don't know if you notice it, he looks like Zangetsu. He has an outfit pretty similar.
I
He's got
actually
that.
did not notice that.
Oh, you didn't notice that? Like his outfit. Like if I go to, let me change the wallpaper real quickly. Uh, Let me bring up the picture of the. My computer can do it a little bit quicker. That'd be nice. Man, I got a potato computer, but I'm gonna get a picture up of the Bankai again. Yes. Of course, Cladtu can see my screen right now. This is wonderful. Oh, there it is. Wonderful. There it is. Yeah. As you notice, it looks kind of like
Oh
Zangetsu.
yeah, yeah, like the little black flames kind of stuff going on.
It's very wavy, right? He was
Hmm.
always kind of wavy like that, and it's all
Kind of
black.
torn.
And so it's kind of like he became Zangetsu rather than manifesting the Zangetsu. Which also goes into it because I think Biakiya even says like what his Bankai is basically he compresses all of his power into a smaller form, and that's what makes him like so fast and so much stronger and stuff. And that's basically what Ichigo's Bankai is. It's like I compress all of this massive amounts of spiritual energy into a smaller form to make myself super fast. And man, is he fast! That moment when he
Hmm.
reveals his speed is amazing. I could only imagine if that fucking fight between Ichigo and Byakuya was animated today instead of 2005, how fucking wild it would be.
That would look crazy.
I would love to see like a movie. You know how One Piece has movies or specials of all the arcs? I would love to see that for Bleach, with all the new updated animation. Because they have, what do they call it? Episode of East Blue, and it's like
Yeah.
yeah, like that, but for Bleach, and I think that would be amazing. I would love to see updated animation, especially if this new Bleach anime does really well, and I hope it
Hmm.
does. I would love to see them, reveal some of the older shit. But basically, what we see is he goes really fast. He overwhelms Byakuya and just fucking stabs him. He had an opportunity to stab him at the very beginning,
Well,
as well
he
too.
tried to stab him, I
Oh, he
think,
caught
at
he
this
caught the blade.
point, but yeah, he was forced to catch the blade in order to stop himself from getting stabbed.
It was amazing. I absolutely loved this fight. It was amazing. And then it gets even crazier. Byakuya, after taking that hit, he goes like, I'm going to sacrifice all of my defense. And I'm instead going to go full offense. And he does like a Jujutsu Kaisen domain expansion type move. And just surrounds him in this black dome of swords. And
Hmm.
basically just goes and just starts whooping Ichigo's ass. But then it gets revealed that apparently Ichigo, it's not Byakuya getting faster. It's actually that Ichigo is slowing down. And so as we see his Bankai, as super powerful as it is, it compresses everything so hard and so much that it actually puts a huge strain on his body. Which, of course, is a big trope in anime, right? We all see that
Yeah,
with like Gear
very, very
2,
stereotypical.
stuff like that. I do like that trope. I think it's nice.
That makes sense.
Having a consequence to a power is great, but I will say that no other Bankai has that consequence. Pretty much. I don't see any other Bankai having a consequence though.
Well, we kind of saw it with Renji. Like he was getting
He's
drained
true. He was
from
slow.
using it because he didn't master it.
That's true. It was very slow and hard to move and all that. But with the
Hmm.
other captains like Tosin, there was no reason. Like his Bankai had no
It's
drawback.
probably because they mastered theirs.
That's true. That is true. That is. I wonder what the drawbacks would have been if we saw a flashback for the. Here's a question: would you want to see flashbacks for these captains? Do you care about
Mm.
any of them in a way that you want to see? Because we've seen a lot of backstory for some of them, right? Like
As
Kenpachi
of
and
right now, yes, yeah. I definitely want to see more about Gin because we've seen a little bit. We saw
mm-hmm.
like one small flashback, so I definitely want to see more about that. Like what's because like I can't quite put a pin on him.
Yeah,
Like I can tell he's not a good guy, but like what is his deal? Like
very
it's so
mysterious.
hard to get a read on him.
Yeah, that's one of the things. We kept getting flashbacks of like the lieutenant characters, and I think most people would have preferred to see more flashbacks of the captains themselves, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
So that would have been a lot more fun, I think. But then, of course, we get the. I love the moment Byakuya basically just grabs a sword around him and just bam stabs Ichigo right in the foot. right? I
Hmm.
loved that stab. And immediately after that, follows it up with something we talked about earlier. He uses Keto. He just shoots lightning like right through his shoulder. And I love that about Biakiya. He's so resourceful. He's not just using a sword, he's not overpowering people. He's using all the techniques together. And that's what makes him such a great opponent. He's also just always so calm and collected. That's what I like to see too, because it just makes for a more interesting fight rather than like, oh, I'm freaking out. Look at me go berserker mode. He's
Yeah,
calm, collected. He's thinking about it. I like that.
to the very end.
It's a great change of pace. And then of course we see Hallo Ichigo. So I got to hear your thoughts on the Hallo Ichigo reveal and all that shit.
That was really cool. Like especially because it was beyond just he got it, the hollow mask. He's losing control because you could definitely see it in his attacks too, and like the energy that he was spitting out. It wasn't just black energy. It also had like the red hue around it as well.
Yeah, that was the Getsugo Tensho, and it was black and red. And I think later on in their final attack, you see he's like, all I know how to do is one big Getsugo Tensho, and he's like charging up his attack to fight against Byakuya's really cool like white wings and like a big circle halo kind of thing, which I love
Hmm.
that technique. I thought it was really badass, but the Getsugo Tensho was not red anymore. It was like black and blue, kind of similar to how his Getsuga Tensho would be in his Shikai form. I don't know if you remember that moment or not.
I don't remember the blue hue around it.
I was about to pull up a picture, but it'd be too difficult to find. But trust me, just trust me. Actually, you know what I could do? I could do something real quick on YouTube. Hold on, and stick with me on here because it's worth it. It's worth it. So we're gonna do a quick mute here. I believe we'll see. Yep, here's the Hollow fight, and then here right at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the one I'm talking about. You see this?
Oh, right. Yes, yeah.
Here, let me
After he rips off the
put
mask,
that on
that's
the
right.
screen. So instead of being black and red, when he charges up the final Getsugo Tensho against the white wings, it's actually
It's got that blue hue
it's
around it.
black and it has the blue hue rather than the black and red of the Hollow, like right here. Just showing it for everybody on the screen to see. But yeah, that's what I wanted to show you because I don't know if you caught that.
Byakuya's form at the end there with the wings was actually pretty badass
Oh, I
too,
loved it. I forget what it's
and
called.
the little halo with it.
Normally it's really easy to stick with attack names and all that, but it's very very hard with some of the Bleach ones. Some
Oh
of them
yeah,
are easy. Some of them are easy, but I mean maybe that's why Bankai is so great. It just rolls off the tongue. It's short. It's great. But anyways,
Bankai.
yeah, the angel wing thing with the circle was really cool, and we see Ichigo takes a lot of damage, a lot of blood goes everywhere. But he does win because he ends up splitting his sword up, or so, Byakuya's sword up. So yeah, that fight for me was probably my favorite of this season, of this arc. Definitely love that one. Ichigo versus Byakuya is still one of those fight scenes that I just love so much to this day. But yet the arc is still not over. You think the arc is over, but damn, we get some crazy shit happening at the end, don't we?
Yeah.
Why don't we go through this here? What happens here, Clad? What happens here? Give
Ah.
me give me your brain what you're thinking in these moments, cause this shit is fucking wild right here.
Well, first, I mean, we saw the fucking room of dead bodies.
Mm-hmm.
The,
Central
like the
46.
congressmen or whatever.
Central 46. They're like
Central
Congress or
46.
Senate or, some sort of political
The,
system.
the governing body, the overall governing body, and they're all just dead,
And
just
I think
massacred.
I think one of the key moments or takeaways for me in this was they go up to the blood and it's like it's dry. It's dry blood. These guys have been dead for fucking forever, right? They've been killed for a long time. And so Toshiro and Rengekyu see that and then they see Kira and Rengekyu chases off Kira, and we get to see a small little fight there. I will mention it. We get to see both of their Shikais. Kira's was kind of cool. It's like every time you attack something, it gets double the weight, something like that. I was like, oh, that's a
Mm-hmm.
pretty cool. That's a pretty cool
It's
like technique.
interesting.
That made me go, what's his Bankai gonna be? You know, like that's kind of the real
Yeah.
special thing about Bleach is whenever you see someone Shikai, you're like, ooh, what's his Bankai? It's usually something similar, but just crazy, more powerful, right? Like
Yeah.
it's so obvious with characters like Biakiya, right? Because it's like this is just a bunch more of it. But of course, then you get some weird ones where it's like, huh, this is very different. Obviously, with Ichigo's, his Shikai and Bankai are vastly different.
Hmm.
Um, one is essentially a release of energy, and the other one is compressing his energy. So it's very different. Um, but yeah, so we see that little fight. Oh, also Rengeku's power is kind of like Byakuya's. It's like ash or something like that, like smoke. Does she say what it is? I don't think she does.
Um, I don't remember.
You see it and it looks like smoke or ash or something, right? And it makes you think, oh, this is probably like Byakuya's or something like that, or maybe something more sinister like poison. But you never know. We don't really get to see that fight, but we do know one thing for sure. Kira fucked up by fighting her because that power completely counters him.
Hmm.
If you have like that's one thing about
Kira was a little underwhelming.
yeah, I liked his power, but he just ends up fighting his hard counter. It gave me like Luffy versus Inaru kind of vibes. Like, oh shit, my power doesn't do dick against this person. So he probably just gets bodied off screen. I don't think we actually see the fight, but I thought that was really cool. And then of course we see the biggest reveal, and we gotta talk about this if you expected it at all. Momo shows up and sees Aizen, who is still alive, and Aizen gives her just one nice big final hug. How did you feel about this huge fucking reveal here?
I knew something like this was going to happen,
Mm-hmm.
but I was unsure exactly how it was going to work. I was thinking either the dead Aizen that we saw wasn't actually Aizen,
Like
or
a
this guy
Gigai or
wasn't
something.
actually Aizen. Yeah, I knew something was going to be sketch with it. But I wasn't expecting the stab.
Yeah, he just straight up kills her, doesn't he? He's
I
like,
was
"Thank you,
expecting
Momo."
it to be like, yeah, we're actually here to expose some corruption. And it was actually he and Geen were good guys. And I was like, oh no, they're just Omega bad guys.
Yeah, they're really evil, and they were just plotting this entire time.
Hmm.
And I loved this moment, and I think this is one of those moments that is so hard to not be spoiled by in the anime universe because people talk about Aizen so much. All the time they talk about Aizen. And if you're watching Bleach and you've heard people talk about Aizen all this time, and then all of a sudden you see Aizen die in like a few episodes, you're like, why is everybody talking about this character? It doesn't make sense, right? So in your
Yeah.
mind, you're probably like, well, he's probably not dead. This is fake because so many people talk about Aizen and like Aizen's powers and Aizen versus Aizen versus Madara just by what is it, Death Battle Madara versus Aizen. That's a spoiler. Just that whole video is a spoiler because people who have never seen Bleach before and they're watching these episodes, I'm sure they think Aizen is just dead forever at this point, right? That's how someone new completely to Bleach should imagine Aizen. Like, oh, he's dead forever. But then all of a sudden, oh, I'm actually alive. Like, how many people could actually expect that if they weren't spoiled by Bleach in some manner?
Fortunately, I wasn't spoiled. So it
That's
still
good.
came as a surprise.
That's good. But I have to imagine a lot of people out there have probably seen or heard of Aizen, and if they tried to watch Bleach, they're probably like, wait, but he's dead on this episode. Why are people still talking about him? Like, I could just see some sort of confusion, and then ultimately they would come to a conclusion that, oh, well, then he's probably not really dead. Right? So I
Yeah.
could see how that kind of would spoil people indirectly, which is really tough to do because Aizen, I think, is one of the best villains of all time in anime. No cap. I'm going to say that right now. I don't think that's a spoiler. I love Aizen. I think he's a fantastic villain. And I think this is a great introduction to him. He fucking he's evil
Yeah,
more
it's
evil than Light
it
Yagami.
felt like it brought like a whole new level of power.
Yeah,
to it, like
yeah,
because
definitely.
originally it was Byakuya was like he was the next level of power, like oh that unattainable power is Byakuya, and then we see Ichigo catch up to that, and now it's like
Where
yeah
we
now
go.
we're here, this is the next level.
And it's great because you see that, and not a single Bankai is even used from him. He's just that
Hmm.
strong without it. We immediately see a Shikai power too, by the way. Which, how do you feel about that whole fucking reveal too? Oh, even before that, we see Toshiro shows up because she sees dead Momo, and like
Hmm.
the first thing Aizen says to him is like, "Oh, I should have chopped her body up into a little tiny million
Yeah, to make it
pieces."
harder for you to find.
Yeah, and then it's like, whoa, what the fuck? And then all of a sudden you see Toshiro's Bankai. We kind of glanced over that. How do you feel about Toshiro's Bankai? And how do you feel about the whole reveal that Aizen just like one shots him with his power?
I thought it was all badass. I thought it was fitting because you go, man, fuck Aizen. But you go, but man, is that power sick.
The sign of a
It's
good
fitting.
villain.
It was fitting that, they didn't just give him some other mediocre power. Like, it's fitting that it's like, yeah, they gave him like a pretty intense, like, very strong power.
Yeah, and it was only a Shikai too. That's the craziest
Hmm.
thing. That's the craziest part about it, Clad. What is that? How does that make you feel? What are you thinking about that, knowing that that's only a Shikai?
I can only imagine what his Bankai is.
Yeah, yeah.
Because it is basically he already controls reality. So it's like, what's beyond that?
Mm.
Actually controlling reality? I mean, is
What
there
is
really that
beyond
much
that,
of a
indeed?
difference at that point?
What is beyond reality, indeed? That is a hard question to answer. I will say we see a lot about Toshiro's Bankai too. How'd you like his ice dragon form? I thought it was really cool.
His ice dragon form is really sick.
Did it make you feel disappointed that he got bodied so hard, or did it just make you like hype up Aizen even more? That's a tough
It
one.
kind of sucked that we didn't get to see the fight with the dragon more. I think it would have been hilarious if it was like a legitimate fight or something, almost seemingly like a legitimate fight. Because it felt like it was just kind of,
One and
oh,
done.
boom, boom, boom. And then,
Yeah.
now, oh
Very
yeah, you
quick.
just actually got rolled. It would have been funnier if he was like, I was just letting you play with it a little bit.
Toying with them. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that was one thing that I was curious about because I love Toshiro and I thought his Bankai was really cool and it's really good. It's strong. But like
Hmm.
and you don't see it, right? You see the reveal and it immediately gets bodied and I wonder if that takes away when people cuz it's hard to well, I can't talk about it yet. I can't talk about that yet. Okay, hold on. Let me recollect myself here a little bit because I know I want to talk a bit about Toshiro and his Bankai. I guess the most I can say is the most I can ask would be if you were to see Toshiro fight again with his Bankai, and if he were to win or lose, like, how would you feel about him knowing he got one shot by Aizen? Do you think he's weak, or do you think he should win fights still? Like, where's your
I
counter at for him?
think, I think just because of how strong Aizen's power is, it doesn't really take away from Toshiro.
Hmm.
If anything, it adds more to Aizen's power rather than take away from Toshiro, in my opinion.
That's good. That's good because I am worried that people who like Toshiro might be demotivated and just be like, "Oh, he got his ass whooped so badly, like so quickly that this is making me like him less." That was kind of one of my worries about Toshiro because I really do like him, but him getting one shot by Aizen as badass and as kind of almost needed as it was to show how powerful Aizen was,
Hmm.
it makes you a little bit disappointed because Toshiro is a really cool character, the cool design, and you want to see more from him. And to see him get one shot, it's very reminiscent of at least I would compare it to Chad getting one shot by Shunsui because
He'll get his
Shunsui,
revenge against Geen or something.
yeah, that's a good point. They both have white hair too. That's kind of an interesting comparison. I don't know if that's relevant, but I kind of I like to make those kind of comparisons a little bit. Um, but yeah, also we also learn that Tosen is also one of the traders. Did you see that coming? The blind guy being a trader.
I did not see that coming at all.
Let me ask you this, because Tosin just got his ass whooped by Kenpachi. Does that take away from him being a traitor at all?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, not really, but kind of.
He seems
Like,
weak
I
though,
can
doesn't
see
he?
it's like the dude, like, he obviously is going, he wants to do whatever it takes to get power, so, like, I get it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, he's just kind of a loser, in my opinion.
Yeah, I will say about Tosin, he seems really weak, like because of him losing like that. You know what I mean? Like,
Tosin, more like loosen.
and that's the end of the podcast. All right. No. We got a couple more things to talk about first. That would be a perfect way to go out. That would have been a perfect way to go out. I would have loved that. What? Couple more things first, though. So we know that Tosin got his ass whipped by Kinpachi, but to me, Tosin was also very confusing because you also see a bunch of backstory about like he's always like talking about justice, and so like
Yeah,
it's
that's what
very
was
confusing.
confusing. So
It's
what
very confusing,
justice is he talking about, you know?
and that's exactly the
Or is
questions
that
that
just a
Fred.
lie? You know, like, who
Is it a
knows?
lie? Is it real? Who's the woman who died? What is the promise he made with her?
Is his justice personal justice where he has some sort of revenge or like he needs to avenge somebody that he knows or you know like
Or is this just whatever Aizen's
because
goals are? Because
you
do
know
you.
what?
Yeah.
Saijin actually went back to a grave and was
Yeah.
saying Tosin's friend, right?
That is correct. Yeah.
I got the only thing I can be thinking of is the justice is his own personal justice for his friend.
Yeah, we don't know what happens to that person. We know it's a woman, I believe, and we know that they had a little like talks when they were younger, but we don't know how she died. We don't know what the promise was or whatever. Um, but do you think that Aizen's goals are exactly the justice that Tosin is looking for?
Mm. I don't think Tosin actually aligns himself with Aizen. I think he just follows Aizen because he sees that because he said something about I follow the path of the least amount of bloodshed or something like that.
That's true. I did forget about that line. That is true. So I guess the next question, of course, is what do you think Aizen's goals are? Because we see Aizen obviously, he basically takes Rukia, and we learn that Kisuke Urahara put something inside Rukia's Gigai, and that everything was basically a part of his plan to get that, which was called a thing called the Hogyoku, and it was something that Urahara Kisuke created and wanted to hide because he, who knows why? We don't know everything about this item yet. But he just rips it out of her soul. He also uses Keto number 90 against Saijin, which was just this badass move that apparently was only 1/3 of its power or some shit. Um, what do we think his goal is? We also, of course, we see Hollows appear, the Grinos Monde. Is it Grinos Monde?
I
And they
think,
appear
yeah.
to save them, all three of them, bring him into the Hollow land of Huko Mundo. Like, what is Aizen's goal here? He wants this item. He did all of this just to get it, and now he's going to Huko Mundo with where all the Hollows are. What exactly do you think his goal is? What is the purpose?
Hmm. I'm thinking it seems to be, and this might just be because I'm seeing, I've already seen a little bit of the next thing, but
A little bit, yeah.
I think it has something to do with bridging the gap between Hollows and Soul Reapers.
Yeah, that's true. Could be that. We of course recently have watched some more episodes. We know about
Mhm.
Vizards and Arankar. Maybe this item is related to those. We don't know. Um, is Aizen's goal to be like them, or create them, or maybe this is maybe all a plan towards some different end? We don't know. Um, any last thoughts about this arc? How would you rate it compared to the arcs before? Um, give us a little taste of where you're at with Bleach right now, what you're thinking.
I would put this at like an 8.5 out of 10, honestly. I thought
Very good.
like all the fights were like really good. Um I wouldn't say I was disappointed about anything. Uh, a few of the flashbacks were a little bit of a resonant sleeper. Like there wasn't
Definitely.
anything too crazy with them. And honestly, like if my main issue was, I wish the fights were just a little longer. Like some of them, I wish they had a little less flashbacks to them and a little bit more action to them.
That's true.
You know?
I wonder if that would have been the case if it was animated today. Because this is 2005,
Yeah.
right? So like this was very different style of animation, and they wouldn't animate very extravagantly. I mean, like they definitely blew all the budget on some of these fights later on. Like Ichigo versus Byakuya is probably where all the budget went. And a lot
Hmm.
of that action was great, but it definitely just went too quickly. And I imagine if it was animated today, it would be, God, I can only imagine how cool it probably would be. It would be enhanced a lot. So like, where's your hype at right now for the arcs to come and for the new anime, especially like the new animation and everything? I mean, have you seen the new trailer? I don't know if you
I
have.
have not.
I
I've not
wonder if,
seen anything on the new stuff.
yeah, maybe you should avoid the trailer. I would say the trailer is worth watching, but also not because maybe it'll be a spoiler. I don't think it's that spoilery though. But I would say that the animation of the new trailer is something that would be very hyped about. Like, wow, this looks so good. Is that something
Yeah.
that you're looking forward to with the new anime? Like, are you looking to get this whole series done in time to watch the new anime?
I if it's anything like the Kenpachi Ichigo and Biakiya Ichigo fights, then yeah, absolutely.
Mm. What matchups are you looking forward to the most? What Bankais do you want to see the most?
Hmm. Hmm. I definitely, obviously, I want to see more of Ichigo's Bankai.
Yeah,
Um, I'm kind of just trying to figure out more about the Aranka for the most part.
the Rankar is what your mind is at right
Aranka,
now,
yeah,
right? Yeah,
yeah,
but I'm
because there's some new stuff being added with
There
that.
is a lot
But
more. We are a little bit ahead. Of course, we
I
also
want to
have,
see more of the captain stuff because,
especially
like I
after
said, the fights. I wish they were a little longer, so I'd want to see more with stuff that was going on with them.
you're pretty much over the loot at the moment, I would imagine, right?
The lieutenants.
The I will say this: Kaku is not a lieutenant, but he's
Yeah,
up there. Kaku's fight we just saw recently. Woo! I loved that one. How would you rate
yeah, that
that one with
was
all of this stuff? Where would you rate Kaku's
that
fight?
was definitely one of the better fights so far.
I'll say a Kaku fight was definitely better than your fight for me. Um, It was better than the Tosin stuff. I like the Tosin stuff, but it was a very different kind of fight. I feel like
I like the
Tosin,
Tosin fight with
yeah,
because of Kenpachi.
Kenpachi felt like the natural counter to that ability too. Because like, who else would be
Hmm.
willing to just get cut up like that? To just like if you were to,
Yeah.
if you were to, if it was Tosin versus Biakiya probably would have just like done something really like smart or clever to try to like make a plan around it. Like
I
I'm
mean,
gonna,
he'd just surround himself with
yeah,
his
yeah.
pedal swords.
It's true. He could maybe even have some keto that does something though too. Maybe
Hmm.
I don't know. I feel like there could have been strategies that other people would have employed. Kenpachi's like, nah, cut me up, and I'm gonna grab a hold of you and just fuck you up as soon as I have my
Oh,
hands on
it
you.
was so badass when he got stabbed and then he grabbed his arm and is like, "So as long as I'm touching the blade, I'll be fine, right? I'll be
Yeah.
able to see and hear everything." And then
Yeah.
he let him go because he was like, "Yeah, do it again.
How do you feel about
Come at me again."
How do you feel about Kenpachi in these coming arcs? Anything you want to see from him?
I want to see more Kenpachi fights for
Yeah.
sure.
What kind of stuff do you
Just-
want to see from him? What if Kenpachi was to get stronger or have a power up? What would you imagine it to be?
Well, I think the only thing left really for him to power up on is to actually learn how to use his Zanpakuto.
Hmm. Like Shikai and Bankai?
Yeah.
What would you imagine his would be?
It's got to be something to complement his power and stuff like that. So, hmm,
Do you think it would
hmm.
be a like I summon a creature type of thing, or do you think it'd be like a Ichigo kind of thing, where it's like a power up of some kind for
I
yourself?
think it would be a power up kind of thing for himself.
Yeah. Like I'm
because
gonna.
he's all about like I don't need to learn the name. Like you can't fight me by yourself.
Mm,
Can't
that's
fight
true.
me with your own strength.
What would you imagine his Zanpakuto looked like? Is that something you think of? You think like what people's Zanpakutos would look like their manifestation? Because I would imagine, like obviously when you see these creatures from Bankai, especially like um, the big samurai suit, it's like, oh, that's probably what his Zanpakuto manifestation is. Just like a giant samurai, right? And the
Yeah,
evil baby caterpillar is probably what Mayuri's fucking Zanpakuto looks like. Do you imagine that with a lot of the Zanpakutos? And do you
a little bit. I think Kenpachi's wouldn't change. I think his sword would stay looking the exact same.
hmm.
It would just allow him to put his own energy into it.
It looks a lot like a saw blade. You notice
Yeah,
that? It's
because
like
it's just
very
been chipped away from all the
yeah.
use.
Yeah. It reminds me a lot of the boar guy from Demon Slayer. He has like a chipped sword or whatever.
Mhm.
I wonder what purpose that serves. Is there a purpose to it? I guess you could catch swords on it, right?
Well,
No, maybe not
I
Kenpachi.
mean,
The
you
Demon Slayer
don't
guy.
want your sword to actually be like that because it's just weakening the integrity of it. But if you get slashed with something like that, like an uneven like blade will actually cause a lot of damage and serration and make it very
Mm.
hard to heal or and like stop the bleeding and stuff like that. So it can actually do a lot more damage when it has
Mm.
that serration to it.
Give me a quick like some. What are your favorite characters right now in Bleach? I mean, like just like a top two, top three. I would imagine
All right,
Kenpachi's up
I'm
there.
gonna do a top three.
Yeah,
Ichigo, Kenpachi, and this is no specific order.
sure. Yeah.
Ichigo, Kenpachi. Hmm, that's tough. Yeah. I'm gonna say two because I would want to tie Chad and Ikaku at number three.
Ooh, Chad's up there for me too. How would Ikaku be for you if we didn't just watch the fucking Bankai fight before recording this episode?
Okay, according to this episode, I probably wouldn't put Ikaku up there, so I guess I'd put Chad maybe.
Yes. All right, you heard it here, folks. Chad in the top three. Chad also in my top three as well. Ichigo, Chad, and if I were to give another one, who would be my third? It's Ichigo, then Chad for me.
Ganju.
No. I'm trying to think. You know, it's hard to say. I mean, maybe Aizen. Honestly, I just really like Aizen. I think he's a really great villain.
Mhm.
If we count the villain Aizen, if we don't count the villain, and we're only talking about like if we're only talking about heroes and stuff. Oh, that's a tough one. Even knowing the whole series too, that's a tough one.
Renji's definitely up there for me too.
Renji is
Like
pretty.
specifically after the Renji Byakuya fight.
Yeah, I would have to guess. I honestly maybe Yamamoto probably. I think Yamamoto.
But yeah, he's pretty badass, but
I
I
think
don't
he's a
really know too much about him.
yeah. That's from me knowing
Same thing with
everything.
Aizen for me.
Yeah, I think there's some good shit with that. Oh no, I'm crazy, dude. I can't believe I forgot him. Now my top three. Okay, this is gonna include top four now. Top one. For me is Ichigo and Chad. Top one and two. Ichigo and Chad, and then Aizen and Grimjow. That's for me.
Grimjow.
You know Grimjow a little bit, only a little
Hmm.
bit. We've seen the episode where he gets revealed. That's about it. Grimjow, he's up there for me. I can't believe I completely forgot him. I'm trying to not be spoilery, so I'm trying to block out a lot of the stuff. But I can easily
Yeah.
say because we watched some episodes together, you get to see Grimjow a little bit. We're like right at that episode now where he basically reveals himself and just stabs Rukia right in the stomach, right where his hole is.
Yeah, where
Actually,
his hole is, yeah.
interesting, interesting.
Right through his intestines.
Very interesting. But yeah, no, Grimjow is definitely one of my favorites as well. Love Grimjow. But that's just saying villains, right? Like villains are a hard place to categorize because you want to
Hmm.
always put the heroes usually up front. But I love the villains so much in the series. I think they're fantastic.
There's
Um,
nothing wrong with that.
yeah, I think if you look at a series, you can have a villain as your favorite character easily. But yeah, Aizen and Grimjow are just such good characters in this show. I love them. Just like I love Kaido and fucking One Piece. I think Kaido is fucking amazing.
Oh
And
yeah.
Blackbeard too. I love the villains. Um,
I would get a Kaido tattoo.
ooh. Would you get the tattoo like he has, or get tattoo of Kaido? Like tattoo of all of his scales that he has, or like
You
just
know what? Why not both? I'd get
yeah, that'd
his
be cool.
tattoo, but I'd get it with his scales instead of the red ones.
Yeah, the scale stuff is pretty cool, but yeah, I've never gotten a tattoo, but that could be interesting.
Same.
But
I've never got a tattoo
anyways,
either.
this is gonna be the end of this podcast. We pretty much talked about everything, and as you know, we will
Hmm.
do the introduction to the Iran cars, and we are definitely skipping all the filler episodes, not doing bounce. Definitely don't expect anything from those. We will talk about how annoying they are though in the anime because they keep talking about the filler characters in the actual real episodes, which is very annoying, and we'll definitely
And
talk
giving
about that.
them relatively a lot of screen time.
Very unnecessary amounts of screen time for characters that are not canon. And so many episodes they keep
And
talking
not
about 'em.
even
They won't shut
important
up.
in the episodes that they're in.
No, they won't shut up about them. Actually, it's insane. And we're only like a few episodes deep. It's insanity. We literally just got done, and they were like, "What's Reishi? What were they saying? What's Reishi or Riashi or whatever the spirit pressure thing?" And it's like, "Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
and
remember
Rukia started talking about bounce.
yeah, it talked about how bounce used it. I'm like, this is awful. Why am I? What? Who are these characters? Like, people are probably so confused if you skip the filler. But of course, filler was a different beast in 2005 or whatever. It's nothing like it is today.
That
Those
was a
filler,
crazy year.
yeah, very different world of anime than it is now. Filler episodes are everywhere. But yeah, we're gonna probably not be able to do this next arc in its entirety. It will be in 20 episode chunks. But yeah, make sure to check out the next episode. Thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you next time.